That's why.
But he's finishing our work.
Okay, now click on
All right, that's what it's Jim.
it. There it is.
Perfect. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3,
We're
4,
waiting for him.
5, 6.
Peter, and Peter's on.
And oh, Peter's on, so we have a full template. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to call the meeting to order for you. First item up is the Pledge of Allegiance, and to be followed by a moment of silence. And Jonathan Abrovich, our media production specialist, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Let's move on. On the opening items, item number 3, a motion to adopt the agenda as presented or recommend changes. Would anyone like to recommend? Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented, maybe?
I'll make the motion to approve.
And a second, any discussion?
Second.
Mr. Miglorino. All right. Do you want to throw that up on our?
Dr. Pinkerelli's vote.
Dr. Pingerelli, if you could vote yes, no, or abstain from the agenda, please. It should pop up on your machine.
Did we do a roll call?
We voted online, so it's essentially a roll call vote.
No, a roll call. As far as counting everybody is present. You just say all members are present.
Oh, yeah, so all members are present. When I called the meeting to order, I said we have all 7. So
Okay.
all members are present.
All right.
All right, moving on to the annual board organizational meeting, the election of governing board chairman. Are there any nominations for the office of chairman?
Like nominate Barbara?
I'll second the nomination.
I'd like to nominate Frank.
Second Frank's nomination.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Have to make it 3 times. Any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations? Barbara, do you accept the?
Sure.
All right, and I also accept. We have Ms. Wiley and myself nominated as well governing board chairman. Do we now vote because we have 2 people?
Then now we just have a motion. So somebody needs to motion to elect a person as governing board chairman, and then a second is required for that motion, and then you vote.
A motion to.
Okay, yeah, we did both. Yeah, because historically what we've done is you pick a name. Well, we have people that do pick A or B. We haven't done a motion, so
Yeah, so there is two people nominated. So now you have to decide who you're going to motion to elect.
so we actually have two motions on the floor. So the first one is for Barbara and the second one is for myself. So we vote first for Barbara to see if she gets 4 votes, and then if she doesn't, we would go on to myself.
So
Am I following that correctly? Because always before we would pick we'd say just,
So the nomination is different than the motion to elect. So you nominated
Oh,
you
okay.
nominated somebody and the person accepted the nomination. Now
Okay.
we're going to motion to elect that person. So someone needs to make a motion to elect And then-
So like Frank struck as chairman of the
and,
board.
and then. So then I'm going to put the motion up.
And how are we communicating with Peter? Since he's not voting.
He's live streaming and
Okay.
is voting
Okay.
through Board Docs. So a motion to elect Frank Straka as governing board chairman was motioned by Juan Ramirez, seconded by Linda. So you have 4 yes, 2 no, 1 not present to
Wait a
vote.
minute, mine didn't pop up.
It said not present to vote. Would you like a yes or a no?
did
No.
did he fall, did it log him out?
Oh, it don't matter, there's
That's already for.
already 4, so it don't matter. But I knew that.
But are you voting a no?
Decided to, what?
Are you voting yes or no? So we have a 4-3.
All right.
Chair.
Thank you. So let's, thank you for your. Let's move on to vice chairman. Again, I would, the same process. As a board member, we don't need a second for the nomination. We need a second for the motion.
Right.
Thank you for keeping us honest. Are there any nominations for vice chairman of West-MEC?
I nominate Robert Garcia.
Okay,
And I'd like to nominate Juan.
okay. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Mr. Garcia, do you accept the nomination? Mr. Ramirez, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
All right. So we have Mr. Garcia and Mr. Ramirez nominated for vice chairman. I would entertain a motion to elect one of them as the governing board's vice chairman. So someone want to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to elect Juan.
I will second that. And so Linda made the motion, I've seconded it. Now we call for the vote. Okay. And can we make sure he's online? Oh,
He voted.
okay. All right, so the motion before us is to elect Mr. Ron Ramirez as vice chairman.
I'm waiting for your board, we can bring on, wait for your, did you get a pop-up?
He didn't get a pop-up.
Okay, so then you need to check and see if you're logged in up at the top.
Do a refresh.
You can, yeah. And you can give me yes or no verbal.
Just no internet.
This came back, no internet. That's. Oh, wait, there it is.
There it
It's
is.
gonna make you log back in.
You can give me a yes or no verbal.
There it is.
Motion carries.
All right, motion carries. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right, moving on to current events. Dr. Surgeon.
Thank you, Chairman Straka. Just want to cover just a few things since we had the holiday break. There's not a lot that happened over the last couple of weeks, but wanted to recognize, as the board knows, that Mr. Straka and CJ and I presented at the National Visions Conference, but we also had some others that represented West-MEC there as well. And they were Shelley Tome, Paige Quinn, Jason Crofts, Bronta Cleese, Rasan Bartet, Aaron Parsons, Patrick Clausen, Joel Wakefield, Tremaine Marshall, Christina Guy, Mike Johnson, and Chris Cook all represented West-MEC at the National Visions Conference. So I want to say congratulations and thank you to them for representing West-MEC. And then down to some events that have occurred since we last met. We had the chance to meet with the AMCOR reps, their leadership team for the first time, to begin discussions around workforce development and the kinds of skill sets that they're looking for in their new technicians. So a great first round. We got some more information coming back. I think they've applied for the CHIPS grant or the CHIPS, whatever. I think it's a CHIPS grant or whatever. So we're hoping to get some news back from that pretty quickly. So we're excited about them coming to Peoria, which I think has been a long time coming. And so they were excited about their expansion and we're excited to work with them as well. We had three principal meetings, satellite principal meetings. This is the first time we've done that. Again, seeking collaboration and feedback from our actual city principals and leadership teams about West-MEC and programs and services and expansion and overview and feedback to find out how we can continue to be better partners in the community for all of our building principals. And one of the things I think that probably rose to the top was just really spending more time at the high schools. And we have recruiters and coaches and things like that. So we're going to begin to spend more time, more strategic time, really getting information out, maybe to some of the younger groups for quicker, faster information for our programs and services. So that kind of rose to the top, as well as some of our programs and some suggestions for some new programs moving in the future, especially in the area up around the Northeast campus that you and I have talked about a little bit. Had something very interesting. We've been in conversation with Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. They're looking to start an aviation maintenance program in Hawaii. And they're looking for West-MEC to see if there's a way in which they could utilize our accreditation to get their program off and running, maybe for a period of time. And so we've had our initial conversation. We haven't said yes or no, just we're talking about what that might look like. That may start maybe their general first and then come back with the A&P after that. So we're just to let you know that we're in conversation with them. They would be an extension of West-MEC for a period of time until they could get their feet on the ground off and running with their own aviation maintenance program, because Hawaiian Airlines is in dire need of some aviation maintenance folks. So they've asked us if there's a way for us to be able to extend our accreditation. So they would be an extension of West-MEC until they actually were off and got their own accreditation. So I'll bring more about that as we get further into the conversations.
How would they bring their students?
They would actually be on the island of Hawaii. They would actually be taught there in their program, but they would be under our umbrella accreditation for aviation maintenance, because that's a pretty lengthy process to go through. So they've asked us if they're willing to give them some time and come under our umbrella so they could start a program like the general piece and then bring A&P in at a later date.
Experience with our students going to work for them.
Yes,
So they
in
know that we're
various
training,
capacities.
so we're just trying to.
Say that one more time.
Does that increase our ADM?
I'm going to assume the answer to that question is probably yes, since they're going to be under our umbrella for that program, but I don't know. I'll have to get clarification on
Would
that.
we get paid by Hawaii or Arizona?
There would probably be some reimbursement from the museum back to cover our costs to be able to administer the program in whatever form or fashion. We haven't talked numbers yet. We know there's going to be a cost. And I want to put a time limit on it, and they're okay with that. You know, we're okay to be able to cover you for X number of years until you get off and running, and then they need to stand on their own with their own program. So, but I'll bring you more details as things come along, but I want to make sure that you knew that kind of an exciting new partnership philosophy, kind of a new model that we might be able to reach out and be a real good community partner, not just in Arizona, but across the nation and maybe across the pond, I guess I might say, for sure. And then the last thing I'll mention is we met yesterday at the Agua Fria High School project site, and we took some pictures. So there'll be some press releases coming out around the partnership of the Career Academy or Trades Academy. And I'd say out of all of the projects we have going on, that's probably the most excitement that we have from any of the community groups around around Aquifer High School, so. And one of the things I want to mention, Mr. Straka, that we talked about just briefly before, there might be some other conversations around maybe other projects around our geographic region that might be, applicable to take a look at. That's all I have, sir. Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome back.
Other board member reports. Mr. Garcia, we can start with you and work down.
I attended also the Aquifer event. That was really good. I got to meet the other superintendents and the other boards from Aquifer. Aside from that, that's all I did with this.
And then I met with Kathy Lees on December 15th, just to talk about the vouchers. And I also met Christina Pena, who was a wonderful, she was amazing. And also with Kim Miglerino, your daughter-in-law, and it was very enlightening. So I had a good time with that. And then on the 18th, I also toured Luke Air Force Base with Robert and Shelley Tome and a bunch of different employees and stuff. And I thought it was pretty cool. They showed us their process for packing parachutes and life rafts that came into this huge item, and they just packed it down so that they could carry it and put it in their like backpacks. And then we went off to the air tower and watching planes take on, on and off. And they typically get anywhere between 300 and 500 flights a day. So that was pretty cool. And then we met Lieutenant Colonel Mark Snell and his 63rd Squadron. And he was just saying that the Air Force trains 15%. I mean, they train 15% of the US air fighters, and they turn out like 7 squadrons. So that was pretty interesting. And then they had this amazing helmet that is the cost of a house. It was like $400,000 for all the gizmos and stuff like that for this helmet. So we got to see Colonel Snell's jet. It had his name engraved on there, and right up close. We were just right, like what, 10 feet away, 15 feet away from it. And it really was an amazing experience that I'll never forget. It was really good. So that was it.
Mr. Ramirez, anything?
Only that I met, it's been almost a month, I think, since I met with Ms. Mason and some of the other administrators regarding just an overview of the budget, just kind of going a little bit deeper into the budget and what to look for. And looking forward to planning our next meeting, learning a little bit more.
I don't think I did anything. I can remember.
I'll just 2 things. I would just like to take a moment to recognize a former board member in the audience, the superintendent of Littleton, Mr. Roger Freeman, had served several years in West-MEC, and welcome back. I know your district is presenting, but it's always good to see you, sir. And second, just as we go forward, I just want to kind of give a little bit of kudos to
Honey?
I was thinking Linda Bosom. I'm like, you have the same initials. I'm like, that's not it. I'm not going to say Louisa, but Miss Brown, I don't think we all realize we met December 10th, and Ms. Brown had 3 days to turn around our agenda because of the break and everything, and round everything up from staff. And so I just really appreciate you had 72 hours to put a month's work of work together. And maybe as we go forward, we should really look at our calendar so that we can better plan our agenda and not make Louisa work a month in 3 days. And I appreciate that. And I just want to take a second to recognize that. So that's all my reports, sir. Now I timed out. Call to the public. Do we have any One last time for anybody from the public would like to address the board. Hearing nothing, we will move on to the next item, which is the Littleton Elementary School District presentation. Dr. Freeman?
I don't have the keyboard. Okay. Good evening, board chair, members of the board, Dr. Spurgeon, and guests. My name is Dr. Lonnie Fife. I am the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for the Littleton Elementary School District. And today I have the honor of sharing many of the exciting and innovative activities that our students, staff, and community have experienced due to the support provided by West-MEC. The Littleton Elementary School District is comprised of 9 unique schools that provide students in instruction in the traditional academic areas, as well as in a signature focus area. These focus areas range from coding to health sciences to financial literacy. Today, I'm going to highlight 3 of our schools: Country Place Leadership Academy, Littleton STEM Academy for Computer Science, and Quinton STEM Academy for Health Sciences. At Country Place Leadership Academy, we are cultivating a deeper understanding of government and leadership among our students. To provide a hands-on experience, we have built a mock courtroom within the school library. This unique setup allows students to immerse themselves in simulated legal proceedings, fostering critical thinking, public speaking, and teamwork skills. Additionally, our middle school is actively participating in Project Citizen, a program that empowers students to identify and address community issues through research, policy development, and civic engagement. Through this project, students not only learn about the democratic process, but also develop a sense of responsibility towards societal challenges. We recognize the importance of practical exposure to complement and/or support our classroom learning, so our students regularly participate in field trips to government institutions, helping to develop a firsthand understanding of governance and leadership roles. We believe that these initiatives will not only enrich the educational experience for our students, but also contribute to the development of informed, engaged, and responsible citizens. At Littleton STEM Academy for Computer Science, we are enhancing computer science education and technological literacy among our students. Recognizing the increasing importance of digital skills in today's world, we have implemented TechSmart to equip our students and staff with the essential technical competencies. Through hands-on coding activities, our students are not only learning the fundamentals of computer programming, but also developing problem-solving and logical reasoning skills that are crucial in the digital age. In addition to classroom instruction, we are committed to providing practical real-world experiences. Our students participate in enriching field trips to technology companies and innovation hubs, such as West-MEC. These trips not only expose them to real-world applications of computer science, but also inspire and motivate them to pursue careers in the tech industry. By fostering a strong foundation in computer science, we are preparing our students for success in an increasingly tech-driven society. At Quinton STEM Academy, we are fully committed to providing a comprehensive and immersive learning experience. We have recently established a middle school HOSA, Health Occupation Students of America chapter, one of the few in Arizona, aiming to inspire, and prepare our students who are interested in pursuing careers in the health sciences. This initiative not only fosters a sense of community among like-minded students, but also opens avenues for mentorship and exposure to various healthcare professions. We have created an exceptional health science classroom. This classroom is designed to immerse students in the world of medicine, allowing hands-on exploration of medical equipment, such as blood pressure monitors, stethoscopes, exam tables, thermometers, pulse oximeters, and much more. Additionally, our students and staff also engage in CPR and first aid certification. Students at all grade levels, kinder through eighth grade, participate in dissections. This inclusive approach ensures that our students from their early years have the opportunity to explore and appreciate the intricacies of biology and life science, helping to foster an interest in the sciences. These initiatives will not only enrich our students' educational journeys, but also pave the way for a new generation of healthcare professionals. While I only highlighted 3 of our wonderful schools, you can see here that all our schools are continually improving and identifying opportunities for our students to further their interests and education. West-MEC support has been invaluable in making almost all of this happen. So on behalf of the Littleton School District, I want to thank you all for your support and your time. I am happy to address any questions or comments the board may have at this time. Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank you. I think this is excellent. I love hearing what you're doing at Littleton. When did you implement this program?
Which, well, yeah, as Dr. Freeman, we've been working on the signature focus of our schools for some time, building them up and really refining them. So that's been a process. I can speak personally to the health science as I was the principal there before. And when we first began our focus area, it was very broad and we were looking at things like nutrition and exercise. And then as we delved and as we grew our partnership with West-MEC and we were able to tour the campus, we saw so much more that we could be doing with our students. And so that's when we decided, hey, we really need to get into the health careers. How can we bring that?
So when did you start implementing those things, those ideas?
So
A year, 2 years?
So we really started in 2017 and then we really honed in on the focus. I was principal, I started 3 years ago, so right before COVID, 2020, I believe. And so even through COVID, we were able to maintain a lot of this. So
Okay. And what age group did you start the kids at these?
we started with middle school because we felt,
Sixth grade?
Yep, 6th grade. And now we've expanded to all our students. So our kinder students also participate in the health science classroom. They are also learning about the pulse oximeters, stethoscopes. We're all in K through 8.
And is this for all 9 of your schools?
So the health science is focusing on Quinton, but yes, all 9 of our schools, if they have students in kinder through 8th grade, they all participate in the school signature focus.
Okay. And I follow a lot on what, especially West-MEC schools. And I'm looking at all the proficiency scores. I'm looking at some of the census reporting agents and in how, how many, chronic absenteeism, whatever, for all those different stats. And first of all, Arizona's and your school is no different than a lot of other schools. I can tell you that our proficiency rates are really low. And so I noticed that your school is lower. I still want to take a deeper dive into each of your schools to find out, how long has this been going on and what can we do? Have you noticed that by implementing these programs, is it bringing up your proficiency scores? Are you seeing that happen?
Yeah, so what we noticed is when we started introducing some of these signature focus areas, the first thing it did was bring excitement from students, right? Because this is something very different, things that they may not get. For example, at Fine Arts, they have folklorico dancing and, they have guitar lessons, things that you may not get in another school. So that increased interest. When we have increased interest, our students want to attend school. And if they're in the classroom, then we have better opportunity to help get them some of those traditional academic skills that they need that will eventually lead us to increase proficiency. So it's not going to be a quick fix, but it is one of those things that if we stick to it and we continue to grow it, we're not only growing our students in the academic areas, but we're also showing them the future, the reality of what they could aspire to be. And so that's truly our goal is there's a world out there for you and we're here to help make that world a reality for you.
Yeah. So how much have you seen improvement in our kids, you know, in the math and in reading proficiency rates? Can you kind of?
So my world, I don't deal with that directly, but we can certainly get that for you, ma'am.
Okay, because I'm doing research on a lot of different schools, just because I'm interested, you know, it's kind of what I do.
So we can certainly get some information for you and we can pass it on to Dr. Spurgeon and he can share with the board.
Yeah, and just, Linda, just to clarify and just for the rest of the board, West-MEC funds are only for those upper grade levels, so we can't fund for the whole school. And this is the second year Littleton has been officially part of West-MEC. For the previous year before that, through an IGA, we had worked with them, so technically they've only been with us for, it'll be now a year and a half as a member district.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Garcia and then Mr. Ramirez.
So I noticed that a lot of these like dance, professional development, playwright opportunities. So do your schools focus on the workforce demands of Arizona, or you're looking at workforce demands of the global, or you're looking at, because you know, we have in-demand industries, we have essential industries, we have good quality jobs. And I don't see a lot of them on here other than engineering. So when we're talking about developing for the future, where's that future at? If it's Arizona, then those industries should be reflected somehow, or there should be a crosswalk to higher education, to that occupation or to that industry. These aren't it.
So we are working on that. That is our next step. As I mentioned, we are growing in the program and each of the schools is honing their signature focus. And I understand that when we initially look at the fine arts and we're thinking, okay, music and audio professional development, and that might not be what we need in Arizona, but that doesn't mean that that's not what that child needs to be successful. So we're looking at both the individual child and the needs of the state of Arizona. And so within all these areas, so for example, if we're looking at engineering, we're not just looking at, you know, the engineering ideas that come to mind, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, we're going deeper because there is engineering in the health field. So what does that look like? And we're slowly bringing that in. This is something that we are working with our site principals on, and it is going to take time only because I will say it's difficult to find things that are suited for the middle school student. A lot of these things that you're referring to can be found at a high school fairly easily, but when we try to bring it down to our students, that's where we run into some difficulty. It's not impossible. We are working through it and we are continuing to work with West-MEC to make some of those connections for our students to kind of create a path for them. So if you're interested in this in elementary and middle school, this is what you need to take in high school. And this is what you'll need to do to be able to continue that in college.
So I'm going with your point, the Fine Arts Academy, for example, you know, here at West-MEC, we have an esthetician program and hairstyling program. Our West-MEC students actually went to the Fine Arts Academy, told them about the career fields that they can be in, talked about, you know, how to do hair and makeup as they put on their play last year. Also, there's that stagecraft piece of it, that back end piece of building construction, those type of things. Littleton mostly feeds into Tullison. Tullison has a huge stagecraft program, so we're really, as you talk about, building those next steps for them.
So I would just some ideas I just want to put out there. For instance, you have space in here. Arizona does have a large space presence with our trip to Mars and everything else at U of A, NAU, and ASU have won those grants from NASA and from all the SpaceX and everyone else that do build. So that industry is good. But there's a lot of things that are interested in the lower, especially agriculture. So you take ag, you've got science ag, which is the stackable ag. And you have all these things that we're developing in Arizona as a food bowl for the United States. As we can have 12 months a year agriculture growing and for harvesting, unlike other states. But there's a lot of things we can grow with interest. Because my concern And I think the board and Dr. Spurgeon knows my visibility is that a job opportunity at the end of the day, 21-year-old, 19-year-old, what do I do? Oh, education let me down. I had fun, but now I can't go get a job. The job's doesn't pay enough for me to get a car and get another apartment. So we're looking at these jobs that can really help the individual. So it may not be a help now because they're children and they're interested in a lot of other things as we develop as humans. But in the future, it's not, some of these things can be refined to something more practical in that future space. And it introduced on a lower level, of course.
Definitely. That's something we can certainly consider and work with our leadership team on increasing that.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else? Mr. Ramirez?
Yeah, I have a question. Some of your programs, you mentioned now you're incorporating it into as from kindergarten through 8th grade, you said? Are these modules or is it a class, like a year-long class or a semester-long class?
So it would vary from each school, and not everything is available for our kinder students. So it would vary, but for example, I can talk about coding. For example, coding is something that our students kinder through 8th grade all participate in, and it is a course done throughout the school year.
No.
The health science course is available for kinder through 8th grade, and that's done in quarters. And so the student might get it one quarter, and then another class will get it a second quarter. So it depends on each individual school, how they introduce that curricular program.
No, there are different levels for different, I guess, levels of material.
We
for
have to
the different age groups.
differentiate, yeah. So when I mentioned dissections, for example, our kindergarten students are dissecting cucumbers, and then by the time you get to 8th grade, they're dissecting rats. So if there is a continuation, we make sure it's developmentally appropriate for our students.
Okay. Then what is this on your future forward page under Lakin?
Yes, so
It's Toodle Professional.
So thank you. So Lakin is our newest school. It is a dual language school and it is an IB school. And so Toodle, I believe is how it's pronounced, is a tool that we use to track the professional learning of the staff and students in terms of the International Baccalaureate program. Kind of like a portfolio for the work. So in order for us to maintain or to receive and maintain IB status, we do have to show the totality of the work of our staff and our students.
Okay.
It's really interesting. We're just diving into it. It's our first school.
Okay.
And so we're really proud of that and we're really excited to see where that takes us.
Thanks for some narrative. Thanks.
Anyone else? I just have a couple comments, and then one question there was, mock courtroom, that's really cool. I don't think we've seen a mock courtroom in all my years on the board, so congratulations. HOSA as well at the junior high level, do they get to compete in the HOSA competitions or are they not at that level? I'm just curious how that would work.
Our goal is to have them compete. We got the chapter up and running at the end of last school year. And so this is our first full school year. And we actually had a few of the HOSA chapters from West-MEC come and help us get this up and running, as well as some from Tolleson High School. So our goal is to have them begin
That's
competition.
very cool. And then I think you have an opportunity, but it's also going to be a challenge. It was what you said. And maybe it's not, there's not a lot of jobs out there, but I look at kids in junior high and your job is to get them through high school. If you've re-engaged them for high school, I wonder how much, and you might not know for 4 years, how much you affect the dropout rate. Because I'm not going to be a lawyer, but I really like school now because I was in a mock courtroom. But you probably won't know for 4 years and then you're not the high school district, so it's going to be harder to get the numbers. But I'd be curious if you could track that. And then even, how does it affect your attendance? And as you look, I'm not asking for, if you can, make some assumptions without doing a bunch of work, because some of those requests, I don't want 3 people to work on it for 2 weeks to say, hey, attendance is up 4%. I'm sure you probably have some way to maybe attribute some of that, but I think there's some, again, only a year and a half. It's exciting, But, you know, I think you have a wave of stuff that you can impact and great to see how it impacts years ahead.
I can share that again. You see, when I was a principal and the high school would come down to register my 8th grade students, one of the things they would ask is like, hey, when we went to West-MEC, we saw this. Do you have this at your high school? Do you offer it? Because they know they have a few years to go before they can come to West-MEC, but they're excited. And I think that's what you're speaking to, Mr. Chairman, is, hey, can we build that excitement? So when those high school recruiters or counselors come, not recruiters, they're asking, and they're asking for, hey, I saw this course, I participated in it, or I saw this club, do you have it available? That is what I want.
Because I'm gonna go, I will go to your high school and I'll have great attendance and I will graduate. Because really, I think that this is kind of like the balance. It's like, we want to train people for the job force, but to train them for the job force, we got to get them through high school. And so it's kind of a balancing act, but I think it's exciting what you're doing.
I think so too. Starting in grammar school is key for these kids' success. It's gotta be an ongoing thing to get them excited about their life and what's available to them.
And 6 in 10 jobs do not require a college degree. They can get the right training without having student debt. And Dr. Spurgeon.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that we had our elementary breakfast last year. And one of the things that I asked them if we could do, it's going to be a few years down the road, but what I wanted to know was the students that come through these programs that we support, when they go to the high schools, how many actually make application to West-MEC and get enrolled into our program? So that's something we're going to be looking at still a few years down the road, but looking at the effectiveness of the financial resources that we spend in the area, how does that translate into the students coming in and in what areas does it show it effectiveness? So it's gonna take a little while, but that would be good data.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, Dr. Spurgeon. Already on this year's West-MEC application, we added if you attended a West-MEC summer camp and did some of our middle school programs. So we're already starting to see some of that data of who's been attending and who's been reached out to through these middle school programs also. So
Show some effectiveness.
Yep, and I think you'll see more than we know.
yeah, we had a survey during our West-MEC summer camps. I know some of you guys attended that. 95% of our attendees said once they reach high school that they're going to take a West-MEC program. So yeah.
It's good.
So I make one more comment, Chairman Straka's comment reminded me of my second question. I was gonna ask, have any of your students had a chance to go to an actual court proceeding? Because you can see a lot of professions in action there. You'll see interpreters, court reporter, police officers, social workers.
I don't want to say anything untrue, so I would have to reach out to that principal and find out, but
That'd be a good idea.
but they are truly immersed. They had different attorneys come to the site. They went to a high school in Phoenix Union to participate and see how they run their system. So I don't want to tell any untrue, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know that we are inviting community members and we are going to other locations to participate.
I believe they had teen court there
Yes.
a couple weeks ago.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's gonna help with your, like rates of violence and stuff like that in schools. I was amazed in grammar school, how much is going on. And I think you're gonna see those stats come down tremendously, with that program. I think that's amazing. I think it's we're step in the right direction. So,
Thank you very much. Well done.
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. All right, moving on to Pendergast.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Spurgeon, members of the community. My name is Dr. Catherine Linhart, and I am the STEAM and Technology Integration Specialist for the Pendergast Elementary School District. We have 12 schools that cover preschool through 8th grade in the Phoenix Glendale, and Avondale communities right here in this area. And we are very thankful for your support and thank you for having me here to discuss a lot of the exciting things that are happening in our district. Thanks to your generous support and the voters as well. This is just a breakdown of how our West-MEC funds have been allocated over the course of the year. We do tend to put a lot of the emphasis from West-MEC on our extracurricular activities, and I'll discuss a little bit later on why that is and how that is important in impacting our students and our community. We do, like we mentioned before, use the West-MEC funds specifically focused on our upper grades, the 6th through 8th grade middle school area. And our goals for this year is to really increase our student awareness about the opportunities that exist for them, both in high school and after high school. That includes West-MEC as well as other career opportunities and college opportunities as well. Like I said before, we will be focusing on a lot of our extracurricular activities. We have 3 big extracurricular activities that are supported through West-MEC, and one of them is Chief Science Officers through the SciTech Corporation here in Arizona. The Pendergast District has had Chief Science Officers longer than I've been in the district, and I've been there 3 years. We are working to grow this program so that the students have a presence not just in their schools and in our district, but in the state of Arizona as well. We have started having quarterly meetings, so the students from all 12 schools, the 6 CSOs, come together at each quarter to discuss the plans that they're working on to bring STEAM into their schools, into their communities. We are also going to be moving forward with field trip opportunities so that they can visit career opportunities like West-MEC. And this year we also implemented a CSO leadership team just to give students in those 6th, 7th, and 8th grades opportunities to take on a leadership role. And they are working on planning the CSO events for the entire district. 2 other big extracurricular activities that West-MEC supports our district through is our robotics and esports programs. These are both extracurricular activities that take place outside of school hours, which we believe really increases our student attendance. When students have to come to school because they are participating in an extracurricular, they are there to learn as well. And we have noticed an increase in attendance. Students who participate in extracurriculars have a 10% higher attendance rate than students who are not participating in extracurriculars across our school district. So this year we've increased our robotics program from 2 schools to 6 schools, and we co-host the West Valley Robotics League with the Avondale School District. We, as a district, realized that there were not a lot of opportunities for students to compete in robotics on this side of town. They were having to travel to Chandler, to Gilbert, to Scottsdale, and that's pretty far for our families to have to do on a potentially weekly basis. So with an Avondale district, we now host 4 competitions each school year. And again, it just gives the students opportunity to compete and collaborate with students outside of their district, but without having to travel so far. We will also hopefully have multiple teams qualify for state this year. Last year we had 1 team qualify for state. The esports program is also a very exciting extracurricular that we started 3 years ago. This program is an opportunity for students to participate in extracurricular that might not be interested in traditional sports like soccer or volleyball. So it gets them involved in school, it gets them connected to school, and then gives them a reason to keep coming to school. And again, if you're at school, you're learning. We have been introducing a variety of games just to keep the interest going while also trying to connect to what AIA allows, the Arizona Interscholastic Programs, because we know that esports is something that can take our students past high school. There are a lot of college opportunities for esports. And we also have a lot of other work that is happening within our district within the school day as well. One of the big programs that West-MEC has supported us with is our TechSmart partnership, and that is computer science or coding for mostly the Via de Paz Elementary School, but we have grown that this year thanks to West-MEC. We are now introducing TechSmart at Copper King Elementary School. And this is a program that teaches Python coding to our middle school students. And the sixth, seventh, and eighth graders at Via de Paz receive computer science classes every single day. It is one of their core classes from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. So much so that when they finish eighth grade, they are only a course or two away from having a Python certificate.
Okay. So it's only in 2 of your 12 schools?
The TechSmart program is yes. West-MEC has also supported us in our implementation, which we use in our makerspace. Makerspaces are available to all of our students. 6th through 8th grade students are required to be in the makerspace once a week. And Fuse encourages them to complete project-based learning, but it's choice-based so that the students can start exploring areas of interest to themselves. And then we have also started and continued the partnership with West-MEC doing a Faster Way Forward and Orange Life Experience, the summer camps. Just as was mentioned earlier today, the students are very excited to participate in those. I think this past summer they filled up really quickly and had to open up another set of camps for them. So that's been a very instrumental in exposing students to what their opportunities are, to give them ideas for growth through their futures. If you have any questions or comments, I would be very happy to address them now.
Mr. Ramirez?
Yes, I have questions on the TechSmart program. You said that a lot of your 8th grade students go through the program with a class or two away from getting the certification. Do you track how many of those students go on to get the certification? And does the school provide you the resources so that they can get that certification after their?
So we've not yet had a tracking system. That's definitely on the horizon. This is the second full year of the program. So as they go forward, we would love to be able to track that. We talked about it, but haven't come up with a solution for reaching out. Where they go to high school could also play into that, because not every high school offers coding and computer science.
Yeah.
Where the students already are, because a lot of them are beyond what high schools are offering as far as like an intro to computer science. They're past that.
Yeah, it'd be great if they're provided that at least the infrastructure for them to be able to complete that, you know, going through all those classes and then not getting the certification. You know, it's the opportunities that can come from that, having that skill and that certification are.
It's a significant
Great, yes,
salary too.
yeah.
They finish that certificate there,
Exactly.
they qualify for the
Yeah,
salary.
be that close to it.
Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Ramirez, one of the things that we're doing this year as a pilot with the Buckeye School District flows right along the same idea that you have, that the TechSmart piece would be offered at the high school level. They would do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then they would come to 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we would be able to take them much further than they would be. It's almost like you can start them earlier, then we can complete that process. So we have that in place now as our first pilot program to look and see how well we could articulate programs at a lower grade and then finish them off when they come to West-MEC. So we're working on that right now, the very thing you mentioned.
And also I was gonna ask, this Saturday, there's a robotics competition at ASU. Are your students competing in that? Are they participating?
Not. We have our robotics competition on January 20th
Oh.
at Desert Mirage Elementary School. We haven't. The program is so new to some of our students and coaches, they haven't yet felt comfortable branching outside of our district's competitions, minus the one team that qualified for state last year. But going forward, that's definitely a goal for me, to get our students into competitions outside of the ones we host.
Oh, how new is the robotics program?
Since I've been in the district, we only started it last year. I believe they had it for a few years before COVID, but less widespread, more school focused. And I don't know that they went to many competitions during the year. So in my experience with the district, it's only been last year and this year.
All schools or just a few?
We had 2 schools last year and 6 schools this year.
Chairman, it's just one of the things that a lot of people don't recognize is that, you know, the robotics don't work on their own. So the coding is going to be so extremely important. Not only understanding how the systems work, but how to program the system to do what you've asked it to do. This is just tremendous, especially down the lower grades to get that interest because those coding programs are going to be essential.
I had read recently that Python is kind of on its way out and there's like new technology or whatever
Could be.
coming through. I don't know if it's true or not. I know nothing about Python, but how can West-MEC help? You know, getting this coding programs into more of the schools. Along with
I have had a conversation with one district to see if there was a way to be able to create that continuation. But again, it's autonomous choice for the high schools. And then you have to think, where am I gonna find a teacher to be able to administer the class or teach the class? And that becomes, and I'm sure you're probably agreeing, that's difficult to find. That it's not a lack of wanting to offer, it's a lack of being able to find someone to offer the course. And some high schools get luckier than others, I guess is probably the best way to say it. So it's hit or miss based on the teachers you can find to teach the courses. But I think the willingness is there.
Dr. Spurgeon mentioned one of the difficulties we've encountered. We want robotics at 12 schools, but you have to then have 12 different advisors to be willing to take on a full year program. So it is a very personnel type of issue that sometimes blocks things.
Ms. Boozin, one of the things you run into, especially as it relates to career and technical education, most classroom teachers are never taught in the areas of career and technical education, so it's all brand new to them. And oftentimes folks aren't willing to spread themselves that thin, to learn something again, brand new, to be able to also deliver their own curriculum that they're responsible for, they're held accountable for, and then learn something in addition to that brand new to be able to deliver that career and technical education. That's why it's very difficult, as you mentioned before.
I'm sure there's other problems too with some of these teachers that are teaching those types of classes, because when you're working and getting paid at a elementary school or a high school, they're not teachers, certified teachers, more or less. They're coming from industry. And so they get paid a lower rate, much lower rate. And you know, the business itself, the industry pays so much more. So it's hard.
What you find nowadays is oftentimes many coding teachers come from the mathematics background. They tend to gravitate over towards the coding aspect because that's that kind of thinking that goes along, even from the science areas and the technology, but typically it comes with a math background because they just tend to get and understand the coding structures of how numbers and letters work collaboratively together to make it work.
Well, and also it's also an evolution. People who would want to leave industry and teach, their skill level. I can tell you, when I was at American Express, we had code dated back to 1976 in COBOL systems. 50 years later. And that's what.
You're dating yourself.
It wasn't me, but you think about that when we were starting to migrate off that system, if you were a freshman out of college, if you were fresh out of college and wrote that code in 1976, you're already retired. But COBOL is obsolete. And there's been several languages since then. Hey, I did cards on Fortran in college. But that's kind of, I think, with the other challenges, a lot of these technologies, there's always something new. And for somebody to catch up, if you're coming from industry and leaving industry, you have something that's probably outdated.
And I learned basic Pascal and COBOL. That's ancient.
It's like hieroglyphs.
I did a lot of SQL.
That was it. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Welch, recognitions and celebrations.
Thank you, Chairperson Straka, governing board members, Dr. Spurgeon. What an honor this evening to be able to celebrate with you some of our own. And that first person, both of these last in December, Dr. Spurgeon talked to you about, of course, ACT hosted their national conference here, Visions, which of course Dr. Spurgeon and Mr. Williams and Mr. Straka presented at, one of many presenters from West-MEC. But we had a couple other recognitions at that conference that we wanted to share with you this evening. The first one is Kendra Odell. Kendra is our career literacy, or I'm saying career literacy because that's what she's really doing every day, but our career coach at Southwest campus. And she's not here this evening because last I heard she was still in a classroom preparing some students for mock interviews. So she is one of our superstars and was recognized among the counseling division at ACTE as a national rising star in current technical education, really for her leadership in career literacy, preparing students with mock interviews, communication skills, teamwork, problem solving, those types of things. So we just wanted to congratulate her and the work that she's doing here at West-MEC and really promoting career literacy. Our next recognition, also from ACTE, this recognition to Susan Leon, who is here in the room. Susan is one of the reasons that ACTE chose Phoenix as a host site. Susan serves on the national board. She was elected to the national board and currently serves on the national board and has been touting that, hey, you guys, you need to come to Phoenix, need to come to Phoenix. Of course, you know, Visions was at Phoenix. You heard from Dr. Spurgeon that they've already signed a contract to come back in 2028 because it was such a successful conference. West-MEC played such a big part in that, them seeing, you know, best practices exemplified in our classrooms on the tour that Dr. Spurgeon and Southwest hosted. But at ACTE, or I thought Susan had come up, Susan was over there. Susan represents our new and related, she's vice president of new and related services. She received the JROTC Apple Award for the recognition of transformative leadership that she's doing within that division at the national level. So Susan, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Straka, board chairman. So one of the other things, and I'll just throw a teaser out there, is that we have our first semester data that came back, and we'll share that through the board letter. So it's very good. So we had some very, very successful first semester. So
Good. I believe Mr. Williams.
Well, good evening, Chairman Straka, members of the board, Superintendent Spurgeon. Thank you once again for the opportunity to provide a couple updates pertaining to business development and government affairs. I do want to touch first on kind of this theme around business development efforts and some of our partnerships within the educational workforce ecosystem. Dr. Spurgeon mentioned one of those being our initial early kind of exploratory work with the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. Also some of our early work with Pipeline AZ, which is a career development and career exploration platform that is, being more and more widely adopted within the state of Arizona. And it's a critical link within the ecosystem to connect education and training opportunities with actual careers and employers and allow an individual to navigate that system that oftentimes can be a little disconnected. And West-MEC's very much involved. They actually reached out to us and wanted to connect West-MEC to that platform in a meaningful way. So much like the work they've done with the community college system, they're looking to do that first in the CTED space with West-MEC. So more to come on that in the future. And then lastly, our workforce strategy work with AMCOR, as Dr. Spurgeon mentioned, and what we continue to do with TSMC. And I'm privileged to be able to speak on these things each month at these board meetings, but the work of our CNI team, Julie Rodriguez, Jessica and our career services team, everybody kind of behind me that really drives that work. They really are subject matter experts. Sometimes that can be taken for granted. I mean, the work as a school system that we are engaged in with industry is pretty impressive. And I'm very proud of the team and the work that's being done. But all of those speak to that, right? We have an important voice within the education and workforce ecosystem and beyond Arizona with Hawaiian and Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum reaching out to us. So very proud of that and look forward to continue to move that forward and drive the conversation around workforce and how we prepare the next generation of highly skilled employees. Government affairs. So we had on Monday, the opening day of the second regular session of the 56th legislature. I'm trying not to make any correlation between the frigid temperatures and the opening of the legislative session, but it kicked off with some brief remarks from both Senate President Peterson and House Speaker Toma, followed by the governor's State of the State address. I'm just going to quickly go through some points that she mentions because it does start to lay out, and I'm sure we'll see follow up in her executive budget that gets released this Friday. She mentions border security. She draws attention to the anticipated budget shortfall of $450 million. She talks workforce, apprenticeships, economic development, housing, water. She does talk about the aggregate expenditure limit and seeking a permanent fix for that. She addresses ESAs. That's been pretty public in recent reports and press releases. So I think some lines are clearly drawn on both sides pertaining to the empowerment scholarship accounts. She talks about higher education and investments in some of our universities. She talks about healthcare and concluded with some comments on reproductive rights. That was then followed up by a response, kind of a rebuttal from both, again, House Speaker Toma and President Peterson. So it's clear kind of some of the lines that have been drawn. And all that being said, we hope that we find opportunity this session to engage in some bipartisan progress. There may be some posturing, a little bit of finger pointing, but we're hopeful for a productive session ahead. This really does kick off the regular cadence of activities for our work and kind of bill tracking as it pertains to education, both K-12, because we obviously partner closely with our member districts, as well as career technical education. We've expanded that to include workforce because of the close connection between education and workforce development that exists. We'll also monitor agendas within the floor sessions, the caucus sessions, as well as the committee work that takes place on a regular basis each week. We are retaining both chairs in the Senate Education Committee, Senator Bennett, and in the House Education Committee, Representative Pingarelli, remain in those leadership positions. Real briefly, just some key dates coming up is this Friday. Again, as I mentioned, we've got the executive budget that will be released, and that really is kind of the governor's framework of priorities and what her vision for appropriations might look like. We have mid-February, February 16th, that's the last day for bills to be heard in the Committee of Origin. So House bills in the House, Senate bills in the Senate before they make their way across the courtyard. March 22nd is the last day for bills to be heard in the opposite chamber. And then they always put on their April 16th, the 100th day, which at some point in time was like the goal for the end of the session. We typically surpass that. So with that, I stand for any questions, comments as it relates to business development and government affairs.
I got something.
Yes.
Are you aware that they're putting CTE in the state plan, workforce state plan that's gonna be, I think it's gotta be drafted and approved before by. Have you guys, has West-MEC been contacted by anybody on that DES or?
Are you referring to like the WIOA state plan or which, what state? Okay. No, I've not heard that.
I'll include you guys on it because there is a CTE. I make sure we have a CTE connotation in the plan. It's been approved by our director. So I'll make sure the language is, you guys are.
I don't know if you can say this now or not. The transportation, 196, can we get a little idea of how that's working? The students with the new transportation?
The transportation grant.
Yeah.
Yes, Chairman Straka, Board Member Wiley. So we are beginning second semester of students being served through that transportation grant. You'll remember that it's a 2-year grant. So we're halfway through the first year of that funding cycle. We have, because of the cost associated with the ride share, we have spent through that line in the budget quicker than we had anticipated. But there's still capacity within the overall grant budget to accommodate all of that. We do have, at last count, I believe it was 396 is the number in my mind of students that have applied to a West-MEC program to start next year that have indicated that they would require some form of transportation assistance in order to attend the West-MEC Central program. So this allows us to have those data points and where those students are coming from so that we can engage more intentionally with those member districts around cost sharing efforts. We've also talked with Formative, which is the grant, not administrator, but they're the consultant hired by A for Arizona to help guide the work of the grant awardees. So they're very interested in West-MEC's grant because of our scope and our footprint and the connection with different systems and municipalities and districts. So they're offering at no additional cost to us, and even some additional funding coming from some of their sources to really help try to figure this out.
Logistics.
Yes, yeah.
So, well, that means that we can apply, because I know they said they usually only give that transportation grant one time to each school. Does that mean that we can apply for another grant and possibly get it?
Chairman Straka, board member Bosom, there's nothing that says we can't. I would be optimistic that we would demonstrate effectiveness. Part of this award cycle was demonstrating some sustainability effort. So we know that in order for this to become sustainable, that we would need the support of the state legislature, we would need the support of our member districts and cost sharing efforts. And I would extend that to the support of business and industry as well. So those are some of the sustainability factors that we included in this award cycle that I do think we could demonstrate progress in. We can, because of the award timing and our school years don't jive, we were awarded in May, June for the August start. So we're already behind the curve. We can request an extension if by the end of the grant cycle, we've not expended the funding.
You forgot to mention the greatest statistic of the students that started with us the first semester and where they are now.
I couldn't remember if I shared that in the December board meeting, but yes, that is a great celebration. Each semester, we capture those metrics, and one of those is the retention percentage. And we long enjoy a very high retention of 95-96%, which is phenomenal. This year, I believe after all said and done, it was 98% retention. And while certainly that's the right student, right program, right reasons, that's the culture that's created on all of our campuses. But I'd like to believe a small part of that is in part because we've created a reliable method for these students to get to their West-MEC program. So they're not applying to something, getting a month or two into it and realizing I can't make this happen. I'm going to have to.
Application system too.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
You've taken away the barrier of transportation.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's well, you've been,
Very good.
Mr. Miglorino's been on that for a couple of years. Transportation.
The barrier of transportation has existed from the onset. We knew that being able to get to the West-MEC Central campuses would be a challenge. We didn't have the same model in place as EVA did with being born out of the Mesa School District and how that evolved. We didn't have that same start. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. You've got a big footprint. Yes.
Yeah, we have a larger.
You did much better.
Yeah, I have a question. What is that percentage you said of students that said would benefit from transportation? I think you gave a percentage.
Chairman Straka, board member Ramirez, Vice Chair Ramirez. So we had a 98% retention rate at semester. And I think in part that we saw that increase from an already impressive retention rate, in part because of removing this transportation barrier for students and students that are utilizing one of these connection methods through the grant. We have a 100% retention rate of those students. So I'm not sure if that's the percentage you were speaking to.
No, I think earlier, I thought, unless I misheard, I thought you mentioned, when Ms. Molly first asked the question, you mentioned, I thought you did, there was a percentage, like 80-something% of students or people, students in question said that they would benefit greatly from transportation to West-MEC campus if they had transportation.
It's the number of students that have enrolled for the 24-25 school year. It was like
396.
396 have already indicated that they need transportation to access a West-MEC program.
Okay, and that's an absolute need, not that it would make it easier to access.
Yeah, no, the way the questions were asked on the application was whether or not transportation would be required in order for them to attend their West-MEC Central program. So it was they would not be able to attend if they didn't have that support.
Exactly.
So if you didn't catch what CJ said, we had a 98% retention rate of all students, but of the students that had access to transportation, it's a 100% retention from those that started to those that finished.
I think he said that last December too, we were at 100%.
It's,
Yeah, no, I remember because that's a big win and.
A lot of holidays between then and now. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Consent agenda. Before we entertain a motion, does anyone have anything they would like to see pulled from the consent agenda? Hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Ms. Bosom and seconded by Vice Chairman Ramirez. Because it's consent, we don't discuss. So Ms. Brown, up there it is. Thank you. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to action and discussion items. First item is the ASBA recommendations second read.
No, it's not. That's my Chairman Strong.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I thought I could call you up. Ms.
No.
Mays.
No worries. We did pull the second read of the ASBA policies from last month so that it would give board members some additional time to give their input as to whether or not there may be any modifications. We know it was a very short month, very short turnaround. I actually did get some modification requests. And so I wanted to give the governing board an opportunity to discuss those requests. And that's why we pulled it from consent. So we can certainly discuss that here. We can return the vote to approve them as stated, or we could table them till the next meeting, and then I would give the governing board the opportunity to review those modifications.
Okay, do we have from the different board members that submitted to you, do we have that verbiage?
I did not submit that yet. Only
So that's the one we're gonna do next. That's not these. Okay.
It is these, it's for these items, but you wouldn't give the modifications until the next meeting, if that's the governing board.
If we submitted modifications, then obviously the policy, quoting state statute.
And so those are the ones we don't have. Okay.
And also there has been some discussion from the governing board to review whether or not we are going to stay with ASBA in terms of our policy recommendations and review. So that might be another reason why we would want to table any further recommendations from ASBA until we have that presentation and we make that determination. I would leave that up to the discussion.
That's something that we discussed at our last meeting, so.
I think that would probably be a worthwhile, why keep discussing policy if we might shift somewhere else? Maybe we can, when we get to future agenda items, fast track that. So on that, do these need to be updated this month or can we?
There's nothing in there that's so pressing where it's a statutory issue that has a
Okay.
deadline date, so I think we would be fine, Chairman Sharp.
What is the, Wiley, you look like you're ready to sing.
So which item are we on here?
It's on H1. It's the 1, 2, 3. 9 policies. Do we want to make these revisions? And this would be the last one, or do you want to just table them and
I would
wait?
say I'd like to table the whole thing. I want to give further credence to ASBA policies, and I would like to meet with Trust Alliance before we go any further. And I'd like to make sure that every board member gets a revised version so that they can really look into it and see how it compares to state statute. And I also, I would like to say, I learned that you are working with ASBA, you know, on West-MEC's behalf for all these policies that are being presented to the board. And I think that needs to be changed. I'd like to see a member of the board actually working with whoever does our policies.
Okay.
You know, we are the ones that approve it and we set those goals. And I think it is a conflict of interest, you know, to have you doing that. And I know it's a big job. And I would like to entertain the thought of, you know, I don't really want it to fall on the president or the chairman because it is a lot of work and they already are doing a lot of work. So I'd like to see we elect a committee or one person to work with, you know, whoever we go with West-MEC and then the rest of the board. So that we can make sure that we're actually following state statute instead of just giving a generic vision. And with that, I would like to make a motion to nominate myself because I will definitely, you know, I've already have a big start in this and I'd like to look at the rest of our policies to see how they follow state statute because from what I'm seeing, it's disappointing.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your recommendation, Board Member Boosum. So since the governing board does get the agenda items ahead of time, if we work together on that and there are some modifications, we'll have to come up with a process that's fair for the rest of the governing board members to also gather their input. So we certainly can work together to make sure that it's a seamless process.
Yeah, and what I'm entertaining the thought of is that just like we have elected a new president and a new vice chair and stuff. That we have either one person or a committee on that team.
Okay.
To work, you know, with, you know, the governing board and give them, you know, updates and stuff like that and what we want to work with, you know, and work directly with Trust Alliance or whoever we decide to go with.
Okay.
And then, you know, and if we need to, then we will contact you to get your input.
Okay.
You know, and that's what I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see that be in the board's interest, not West-MEC's interest, because it's a clear reflection that it is. And I think that is a conflict of interest to the community.
And we can certainly work together to.
Can I just interject a slight tweak to that? I would entertain maybe a subcommittee that would provide input to the board. And let me explain why is when we've reviewed with legal counsel about board members being present on certain committees, then when that committee's recommendation comes with staff, that board member has to recuse themselves from voting and discussion. So if you were to work with Ms. What is my, Ms. Mays,
It's old age.
oh man. But if you were to work with Ms. Mays as a committee coming from West-MEC, then you would have to recuse yourself from discussion when it came to the board because you can't vote twice essentially.
Actually, what I'm saying is that this person would work directly with whoever does our policies, period. And I may get, asked.
Okay, but it would be more of a what I'm proposing more of like, but it would be like a subcommittee, not a
Or just
West-MEC
one person,
committee, yeah.
whoever, because there is a lot of time involved
Yeah.
in.
But does that, do you see, I just don't wanna have someone volunteer for a lot of work. And then when it comes before the board, it's like, sorry, you have to recuse yourself because you volunteered. It's like, do you see? So, but if you were a subcommittee, you could work independently, you and whoever else would like to do that. And they would provide the input to Ms. Mays, and then it would come back to the board with the, does that make sense to everybody?
And like I said, Ms. Wilson, we certainly can come up with a process, and my only concern and recommendation would be that we still have representative from on the district side, especially when it came to employees. I certainly would hope that we would have that exchange of information so that I can give you that voice from the employee's perspective to help you make a decision. So we certainly can work.
I would just recommend that you just work directly with Kathy when the policies come in for review, that you're just available to review that with her. Because I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean,
Well, no, it's not. And,
it's supposed to be, but in some cases, it's probably not as
right,
cut and dry as
it
you want it to
leans
be.
more towards West-MEC's favor, and I disagree with a lot of it.
So I don't want to interject. I appreciate the conversation, but we're really kind of drifting away from, as Dr. Pingarelli would say, we're drifting away from the agenda item. And so I think what we're hearing is, Ms. Bosom, please work with Ms. Mays and you can come up with to bring your recommendations to the board with the policy.
I would like to work directly with the people that are
And
recommending.
However, it's seamless, as long as it doesn't violate what we talked about from council. I'm good with however you come up with the process, but
So if
work
we-
directly with ASBA, get some input from staff, and you would bring your recommendation to the board when the policies come.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. I would prefer it be a member of the board that does that. And not West-MEC. Of course, when the time arises and we need to have West-MEC's input when it comes to employees and things like that, I'm fine with that. But I want one person or, a few people from the board to work with that
So.
without losing
Yeah,
their
so
vote.
in the interest of, I'm drifting off the agenda item, I know you're interested. If whoever's interested in working on policy and for the board, contact Ms. Brown. Or Ms. Brown, if you'd reach out and see who's interested, and if it's only Ms. Bosom, you'll be a subcommittee of one to work on the policy.
Motion.
Let me just to point out something. If you motion to vote to establish a committee or a subcommittee, that committee becomes a public entity and every meeting has to become publicized and agendized and available to the public to attend. And so I just want to make you aware of that. If you do motion to establish a committee or subcommittee of the board, it becomes a public.
The meeting law.
And as becomes,
Let's see,
yes.
let's see who else is interested.
Mhm.
And we will go from there for next month.
And then also agenda item number 4 will be the discussion on setting the date and time for a study session will be with the trust. And the trust person that is going to be coming is an attorney. So these questions would be more appropriate to bring to the attention of that attorney and asking the attorney during the workshop.
Exactly what I'd
Yeah,
like to do is
yeah.
work with them.
Yes.
Because I am investigating every state statute and I'm reading it and saying what the actual wording is.
So let's go, when we go to agenda item number 4, that's where.
So if we could
And we
push,
lose our vote.
I appreciate the conversation and I want to because we are on an agenda item. I want to bring it back to that. I appreciate the conversation. It's great. But does the board want to do anything with these policies at this time?
Table it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is table it. So do we need an motion or can we just move on? Well, let's move on. Thank you, Ms. Mays. Dr. Spurgeon, the CMAR.
Good evening, Chairman Straka, members of the board, and Superintendent Spurgeon. We're gonna be doing a lot of this coming up, so you're gonna hear a lot of repetitive verbiage here, but in September, West-MEC issued an RFQ for construction manager services for Southwest Campus improvement project. 6 solicitations were received, and after a thorough evaluation process, our committee recommends core construction. Tonight, we're seeking board approval to move forward with preparing a design services contract for that project.
Okay, that's one thing that I had asked Dr. Spurgeon. I wanted a copy of that. I know that you guys worked on that on the 22nd. And it was supposed to be updated by the 8th. I asked for a copy. I wanted to see exactly what, and we have it. None of us have been including. You're asking us to vote on something that we have no clue what happened. We don't have any no
So-
facts.
Could you just, I think CMAR is kind of a little bit of a, can you tell us how many people were on the committee, where they were from, and can you share how many people voted for core? Is that, I don't want to.
Sure, I can tell you how many are on the committee. It's a 5-person committee. It's made up of a general contractor that's unrelated to the project, the project architect, and then 3 West-MEC members. I think this. I don't have the scorings in front of me.
Okay, and then, but it's an independent vote. Each person, my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, each person passes a vote and says company A, B, C, D, E, F, and then I assume they whittle it down somehow based on a rubric. And then based on that, can you share how many people voted for core, or is it a majority?
It's based on a percentage. There's an aggregate of the votes and it ends up in a score. So it's, I think it was based off of 2,000 points. There's several different criteria that we're looking at when we're reading their submissions that we're scoring off of based on company background, project, relativity, things like that.
It's 2,000 points and they were the highest points based on a rubric and 5 people.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I move the recommendation as presented.
Well, I'd like to also understand, how much they charge. I would like to see all those details.
Sure, Ms. Boosum, that will be absolutely transparent. So as the process moves along, when we do our design estimates, those numbers will be presented to the board. Those numbers are all agreed on between the district, the contractor, and the architect.
So it hasn't been discussed prior?
We have a cost base that we're predicting the project's going to cost. Each project will have an estimate of what we need to make that happen. So we get together with all the firms and we run through what all the subcontractors are going to cost, and we negotiate and we find the best price for each trade, electrical, HVAC, roofing. Everything is really drilled down.
But see, those are details I'd like to see.
Of course, and
Sit there and give
So-
approval.
Just can I add, my understanding is a CMAR is, we're now going to award a contract to get all the estimates. We've estimated it at how much $1 million? I don't remember.
for Southwest Campus, 3 to 5.
Yeah, so somewhere between $3 and $5 million. And when they go into the next phase, we'll come back with all the things here. How much is the roof going to be? How much is, but we have based on this, they're a construction manager to manage the $5 million project to as minimum as possible. Is that?
Yeah, so we're getting approval of them to move forward. There's really nothing to show you right now. But we're just awarding the contract for them to start the services that you're asking for when they come back, because there's multiple stages. You'll see more information each time the stage comes back. But right now, we're just saying we want you to start working on this. So there's nothing for me to show you yet, but in the next phase, you'll start seeing more and more of that.
So is the contract basically project management of the project and superintendent of the project? Is that
Yeah, this is the construction, yeah.
Construction risk.
The construction. Risk.
All the trades, the crafts and the budgets, but all those things
That will be coming. Right now, we're just saying,
Has made a motion. I don't want to interrupt, but we do have a motion on the floor to approve the recommendation. Is there a second for his motion?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any more?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Ramirez.
question, yeah, kind of off of what Linda was saying. As part of this rubric was, well, I guess my first question is, the $3 to $5 million budget, was that estimated by the construction companies, or was that the budget given by the school?
Chairman Straka, Vice Chair Ramirez, the architect gives us those estimates.
Oh, okay. And then that's part of the rubric and off of which all the different construction companies work on.
Correct. Oh, the RFQ that goes out has a description of the project and the cost estimation, so the contractors that are applying for the project, they understand what they're getting into.
Yeah, and they understand because they're in the business, obviously, they kind of can run a rough estimate, and then once it's awarded, then they come back with actual figures.
Correct.
Chairman Straka, the RFQ is very intentional. It's a request for qualification. So it really allows these contractors to demonstrate that they're qualified to move forward as the construction manager at risk. So there's not dollars attached to what's being approved tonight. They've demonstrated and we're the highest scoring submission, demonstrating that they're qualified for this project. A actual contract for construction services would come back to the board with more
So
specifics.
they don't get paid until we see that.
So it comes back to the board again.
Nothing starts. So maybe another way to put this is a request to approve who we want to hire for this project to move it forward. Can I?
You're that person's sector.
Yeah, so any more questions, Ms. Bosom, anyone?
I still would have liked to have seen, what was originally said, what the intention was. I think that's really important when you're asking for board approval.
Right, any other question, discussion? Hearing none, I'll look to Ms. Brown to put a pop-up on our screen. Okay, so it passes 6-2 with 1 abstention. All right. Thank you. Moving on to the next item. This is really, Mr. Heath helped us out. This is the next phase of what we just approved, but the other campus here. Southwest is a little bit further ahead.
Chairman Straka, members of the board, Superintendent Spurgeon, as you are aware, Chase Building Team was selected as our construction manager for the Southeast Campus project. Design phase services contract was drafted, was reviewed by myself, by Mr. Weeks, and by our legal counsel, and also by Chase Building Team. Tonight, we are recommending a motion to approve that contract.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
No discussion?
We'll get to discussion once we have a motion. So we have a motion and second. So now we're ready for discussion. Ms. Bosom,
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to bring to our attention is, because I noticed the DLR group is in there as well. And I know that both yourself and Peter Pingarelli talked about concerns with the DLR and the cisterns, the water saving cisterns that they incorporated in the design several years ago. And what a waste of West-MEC's money that was. It was like something in the neighborhood of 400,000 that came out of our pocket. So, DLR Group is known for zero net energy designs. And so I really want to keep a close eye on them.
you know, our nation is already, we're already in debt by $34 trillion. And for us, there was a study done by Stanford Engineering, and they said it would take approximately $62 trillion before we convert to renewable energy. And I know this is what DLR is all about. And not only that, it's gonna take like 36% more of our land than we normally use, than what we know normally use for energy generation. So like I said, I think that, you know, the board stressed our concerns during that meeting, and I wanna pay attention to those designs and scrutinize them before we move forward.
And we would see that we always approve the designs.
Yes. For sure. And we've had multiple conversations and that topic has not come up, nor will it. So.
Okay.
Based on the board's feedback.
Okay. I'll be watching.
Yes. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question if you're ready, Ms. Brown.
Unfortunately, I was helping him with his laptop. So motion made by?
Mr. Miglerino and seconded by Ms. Wiley, and then we had discussion. And I know, Mr. Heath, you and I talked about CMARS and the process over the phone. And just for the board's benefit, he made himself available for anyone who would like to understand the process and the projects. I would love to do that as a study session, but then we have to do an agenda. So I would encourage members to just reach out directly to Mr. Heath to set up a time to have an update with him. And because I recognize I don't want to pick on new board members, but it's the first time you're going through some of these and it's complicated and different. And I want to make sure everybody gets their questions answered.
And I will say, while the construction is going on, it is always good for a board member to go out and check the site. And when the designer or whoever's in charge of it says we are 72.5% complete, that blows my mind. How do they know they're 72.5%?
The computer tells
It's
us.
just
The
really.
computer, it's the number of hours they've spent.
Yes. They've got it all figured out. So.
It's either time or.
Get your email. Phone numbers.
Absolutely. Get that to you before we leave.
Mine didn't pop up.
That's great.
Just really need to vote. Need to vote.
Oh, whoops, wrong page. I was looking at.
You already voted.
You only get one vote.
Motion carried.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 3. Oh, that was 3. Oh, no, item number 4. Pick a date, study session.
What are we studying?
This is the
Trust Alliance.
Trust Alliance policies versus the ASBA.
Oh,
So we're,
let's do it tomorrow.
well, we have to give certain amount of notice. Do you want to do it before a board meeting or do you want it to be on a separate day?
Well, the dates that are listed and the times are what were presented to the attorney that would be presenting the information.
It's Wednesday, the 7th, March.
Yeah.
March 6th, April 3rd, or May 8th. So it'd be before.
See that?
It's on the item right here under public comment. I would be the first one is February 7th, the Wednesday, February 7th, 3 p.m.
It may have logged you out.
Oh, that's December.
I can do March 6th.
That's right. Let me just get on my book.
These are all the Wednesday before a board meeting, yep. So I hear a March 6th. Is that a form of a motion, sir?
I'll motion March 6th. We pick any other date other than the 7th?
Well, you could, but then I'd have to go back and check with the attorney to see if she'd be available. to present.
At least.
Yeah, I'd like to do it sooner.
Well, the 7th of February is right before the board meeting.
No, it's a week before the board meeting.
No, it's.
Yeah, 'cause what-
It's the day of.
It's the day of the board meeting.
February 7th is.
Yeah, we
got it.
in March.
I already got that written in my book.
6th is.
Okay, yeah, so I don't send that last motion and.
Are we good with the 7th?
Yeah, let's do the 7th.
All right. And then let's go with the 7th.
Board meeting, I thought.
I hear a motion. Is there a second?
Okay.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Garcia, seconded by Ms. Bosom. Any further discussion? Let's vote. Ms. Brown,
I'm getting there.
waiting for our
I had to
pop-up.
type in the date and time. It was. Robert
February 7th.
and Seconded by Linda Bosom.
Yes.
I didn't realize it was the same day as our board meeting either.
Yeah, the next two.
Just the screen so we can see everybody's vote.
It'll pop up there right, very in the-
Right here. There's usually.
It only shows 5 of the 7.
So it's like, it's not says 7 yes, 0 no, just right there.
Okay,
So it's 7
so it
yes.
doesn't show the last 2 names.
Well, because the screen, if Darren, there you go.
There you go.
Needs to move it up.
Me and Miss Wiley are secret.
Secret.
Could be dropped off.
All right, that moves us to future agenda items. And we had already talked about policy, so I think we resolved that one.
Yeah,
And we'll have both companies come and.
Which one?
Which one? Is this ASBA? The trust is ASBA?
No.
Okay,
The trust is Arizona Risk Retention, it's
Okay.
our insurance company.
There's like one other option.
Liability insurance.
There isn't anybody else doing it, is there? No, so it's either that one or ASBA.
So,
Mr. Chair, I got a recommendation. I'm sorry, Jim, yes.
oh, go right ahead.
So I request for future agenda items. We are at the mid-year or the school year. I'd love to hear some stats on where we're at with enrollment, drops. How are we doing? What's our report card right now? We doing well? We hurting?
well, that was, I think, that was on the agenda last month. And we never received those reports. I emailed Kathy the very next day when I think what was our meeting was 13th or the 14th or whatever. So whatever day was the day after I emailed, because I want to see certain criteria for each of those reports so that you can see a trend that we can just keep adding on. And I gave that, to you the day after our last board meeting. And I'm really surprised that we don't have it.
we're probably waiting for the 100th day because that seems to be a magic number. And that's probably
It
in
was
the coming
promised,
week.
it was promised to us for this month.
Okay.
So,
320,
well, that was,
It's going to be coming out this Friday.
what comes out this Friday? Okay.
When is the 100th day? This Friday?
It's in February. Steve, you know what the 100th day is this year? It varies a little bit.
Yeah, it would likely be the end of this week, or into next week. It's usually right around January 9th to the 11th in there, that's your thing, so it's coming up.
It's start of July.
The kids getting their first semester grades soon, so.
Whenever they offer pizza.
well, yeah, we asked for the employees' reasons for leaving spreadsheet and also for the ADM spreadsheet.
That will be on February.
Okay,
And
It's coming.
the ADM will be.
and those I definitely would put on the agenda.
March meeting, ADM presentation, it's gonna be in March.
Okay, and we also talked about it being updated, both of those reports, updated quarterly. So that we can see the whole trend from the beginning to the end and just keep adding on to it.
Ms. Boozum, I've asked Ms. Mays to do the personnel report monthly because it's just easy enough to do it when it's right there and fresh in your mind. And we just have to make sure that we capture the information that you're looking for. So it's just kind of a little spreadsheet that's just attached each time. So you kind of see a running total each time
Okay,
for that.
Did Kathy share with you all the different reasons and what criteria I wanted to see?
A little bit, we haven't talked since you guys have talked, I don't think so.
And just as a side note, if we're looking for reports, you don't have to wait till here. You can just contact Ms. Mays directly, contact Dr. Spurgeon. Really what we want to talk about here is what do we want to talk about in February, March, April? But if we're looking for reports, follow up, you're welcome to follow up.
They did follow up, so, yeah, it was just said that we were gonna have it, though those were gonna be presented to us in this, right, this month, so.
Any other future, Mr. Miglorino?
I would like a discussion on how the board receives legal services. Where they come from, how that firm is selected, and how the person that represents us is selected.
Okay. So really what I think you're looking for is just our legal RFQ, how that's, or our legal contract, how that's maintained. I think it's,
Ms. Brown has done some work for me and I have some idea, but I want to know, how they get it, how they give it to us and who we get and why.
so the board's legal counsel contract selection
Well,
process.
yeah,
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you guys are always citing legal issues and it's important.
I think it's a good idea,
All attorneys aren't created equal.
You're right, and I think we should get requests for quotes, what.
All right, anything else? Dr. Pingarelli, thanks for sticking around. If you have any requests, send them directly to Dr. Spurgeon or Ms. Brown. And hearing nothing else, we can stand adjourned.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Second by Mr. Ramirez, and we'll stand adjourned at 6:23. Or if you want to wait till 9.
December, this screen 20 was available. What?